Hey everyone, my name is Kristen. For anyone who has just happened to stumble upon this and you don't know who I am, but today I'm going to be doing a book review kind of discussion for Divergent by Veronica Roth. I finally read this book in March of 2014. I know it's taken me long enough, but I figured since the movie is coming out this week that I ought to jump on it because I've been wanting to see it and I refuse to see it without reading the book first. So I picked up the box set this week and I got suckered into this because I knew that I would want them one day, but I went initially to Target to just buy the first one, just the hardcover version of Divergent, and they have the Target exclusive version, but it has a permanent red sticker that is right here that is non-removable. So if you are OCD like I am about covers, then you know that is unacceptable to have in your collection. Decided why not just get the box set, so it's a smart marketing technique on Target's part. Anyways, I finished the book this afternoon and I absolutely loved it. I am a little bit iffy, kind of on the fence when it comes to dystopian novels. I just find that I don't always get into them as much. I'm not as kind of engrossed into the world as sometimes with fantasy and things like that, or even just regular contemporary. However, I loved this one, and I've read a couple. I haven't read a ton, but I have read The Darkest Minds and the Delirium series, and I've read part of the first Hunger Games, and then in high school I read like Fahrenheit 451 and stuff. So I've had kind of a wide variety of dystopian, but I never was like in love with it in the way I feel like a lot of people did from the Hunger Games and things like that. So I wasn't sure what my reaction would be to this video, but thank goodness I loved it too, because I don't know what I would have done if I wouldn't have loved this one, since everyone else loves it, but I loved it. So I flew through this book. I think it took me about 2 days total to get through, just reading here and there. So I highly recommend checking it out if you haven't yet, if you were kind of out of the loop like I am. This will be mostly kind of just a spoilers discussion talk, but I will really quickly do a plot overview for non-spoilers, just in case some of you maybe watched the movie and are looking for more information about the book and you don't want to be spoiled. Although if you've watched the movie, you probably already know what happened, but why not? I did give it 5 out of 5 stars on Goodreads, so I loved it. I really like the covers of these as well. I always start with cover art because I'm a sucker for covers. As I mentioned with the OCD Target situation, I like that it has the flame symbol on it that kind of ties in the story, and I just like those, so they're pretty cool. Now, as far as a quick plot summary, basically this is a dystopian. It takes place in the future, so it is futuristic, but it does take place in Chicago, or what used to be Chicago for the setting. And basically Chicago is almost like this big kind of map area for these smaller like mini cities that are called factions, and basically what the factions are different cities or like areas of the city that have different belief systems and are ran kind of differently and have different values. So they're almost like character qualities and traits that the people or the citizens have to possess that live there. So for example, there are 5. So there is abnegation, candor, amity, erudite, and then there is dauntless. So basically in this society, everyone grows up in a certain faction based on what their parents are and where their parents chose, and then when you reach 16 you have to take an aptitude test to determine where you would like to be, if you want to stay with your faction, if you want to leave. And I believe it's more normal for most what they call initiates to just pick their regular kind of faction that they grew up in, and then they just initiated into their society officially. However, occasionally people do switch to take or do switch to other factions and kind of leave their own. So the aptitude tests basically tell them where they're most fit, where they belong, and usually people follow that. But our main character of Beatrice, or Triss, has an interesting aptitude test that tells her she is divergent, as the title says. And Triss originally came from the faction called Abnegation, which, just to give you guys kind of an idea of what they are, basically Abnegation is centered around selflessness. They always wear great clothing, they say, to help them forget themselves and to blend in and be very invisible, and they're all against anything that's for personal gain or desire or that's vain. So that is where Triss and her family grew up. And then Triss's results are what they call inconclusive, and she is divergent, which basically means that she is fit to be in a couple of different factions, and she has some other special qualities about her. This takes her through her training and kind of initiative program or initiate program as a Dauntless initiate. And then she also has to deal with what it means to be divergent, and then some other really fun kind of crazy things happen. So that's basically the gist of this, and I would highly recommend you guys to check it out. I think it is an awesome book, especially for a dystopian. Coming from someone who is sometimes iffy about dystopian, I loved it. About the characters, and this may be where it starts to get a little bit spoilerish if you have not read the book, so I'm probably just going to mention the characters, but I could slip up, so just in case you may want to kind of skip over this part or leave or something. But I love the characters of Triss. Obviously, she is our main character protagonist, and I love her. It's interesting because I feel like there's a lot to her, but it's not, you know, presented in a way that is overwhelming or almost like so much about her. She's not really, you know, an obnoxious character either, and I like her because I feel like she has a strong progression throughout the book. She kind of figures out who she is. She battles between who her true identity and who she is and where she belongs a lot throughout the book. Like towards the end of the book, she really does hone in on who she is and where she really belongs, and she kind of gains true perspective of things. And I feel like we kind of see her battle, you know, almost like bipolar opposites. You know, she battles her selfishness and then her still ability to be kind, and she doesn't really know, you know, between abnegation and dauntless, like where there is, you know, a connection. And then I feel like she kind of clicks with it. I feel like she sees how both of them match and how they work and kind of intertwine. So I loved her character. I loved Tobias, or For's character. I totally put it together that he was the same person like the first 115 pages or something crazy, which I feel like I was all excited about, and I was going to tweet that on Twitter and stuff, and then I was like, everybody else probably figured this out too when they were reading it. But I loved that. I thought that would obviously have to be what happens, because otherwise she wouldn't have mentioned the character at the beginning anyways of Tobias. But that was really cool, and I love his character because he kind of reminds me, the situation in some ways it's totally different, but it does have some similarities to Dimitri and Rose from Vampire Academy, simply because of the student-teacher relationship, almost like the instructor-initiate. So I like that. There's something about those type of relationships that are interesting, like with Pretty Little Liars and Mr. Fitz. So I really liked that, but I love his character because I feel like he is a little bit older, but he's not so old that it's weird. And he comes off as, you know, very caring at times and kind of protective of her, but he also tries to help her and kind of like kick her butt to make her kind of be stronger and to kind of progress more. And I think that she finally figures that out too. But I really liked his character because obviously there's like a developing love interest between them, and so I felt like he was looking out for her. And I love how they both end up being divergent and how they both end up from abnegation, and they feel like they're like the same person and they connect, and I just love that. I think that was really cool. A couple of other noteworthy characters was Triss's mother. I loved her mom, and sadly she didn't have a bigger appearance in the book. But at the very end she was awesome. She saved Triss, and I was so sad when she died, and that was really upsetting because I thought this is going to be cool. She'll be there with her. She'll help her along. And of course, that can't happen because it's like with dystopians, the kids have to do everything on their own. Always. They're just left in this world where they just have no parental guidance anymore. And they're just fighting against all these other older people alone. So that sucked. And then her dad died too, which honestly I wasn't as upset about at first because we don't really see a lot of him. But I did kind of feel bad because, I mean, I can't even imagine. And I feel like he came together at the end. I feel like her whole family just was still a family, and they came together to help each other at the end, you know, despite what faction or where they were at. They were still there for each other, which I think was great. I'm hoping to see more from her brother in the next one. I'm assuming he'll kind of stick around, hopefully. I really liked Uriah as far as some of the people from Dauntless. I thought that he was always a true friend to Triss. I know that Christina and Will and them were, but at times they were always kind of still borderline jealous and threatened by her, and I felt like Uriah was always on board and favoring her despite where she was, and I loved that. Thought he was cool and his kind of group of friends with his brother. Obviously Peter and his gang were awful, and you know, jerk-offs because they were rude and mean, and I don't know what's going to happen with Peter, but I have a feeling that from the tone of the end of the book that him and Marcus are going to cause some problems in the next few books, or either just cause some great tension. So I don't know what to think about that. I'm kind of torn on Marcus because I know we've heard a lot from 4 and how he grew up and stuff, so you're automatically kind of like, I don't like you, but at the same time we haven't seen it acted out in person, so I'm worried he's going to cause some problems. Who else? I really like Tori, and she didn't have a huge role, but she was just kind of there every so often, and I liked that she was kind of like a mentoring kind of older person for Tris to look up to, and she asked her about Divergent a little bit, and I liked her, and I'm really excited that in the movie Maggie Q is playing her. I rewatched their trailer today, and I didn't really connect the two before because I didn't know who any of the characters were, but I think that'll be really good. And I love Maggie Q. I was a huge Nikita fan, and I feel like she has that ability as an actress to kind of play a little bit more of the motherly role. I'm not really sure that Tori is exactly motherly, but she does kind of guide Tris a little bit early on, so I feel like Maggie Q hopefully can do a good job of that. It's kind of strange. It all kind of happened so quickly. Like, I was surprised that the same night that they were initiated into Dauntless, like, they immediately got the army together and were like ready to go. Like, I was like, what? Like, this is happening? I figured like something was going to go on in another book, like Insurgent, so that was surprising how fast it took off. Hopefully there's some kind of like revolt against the erudite and they kind of like fight back, but I'm not really sure because I was spoiled about what happens in Allegiant, which I'm already bummed out about because I like loved this one so much, and now I'm like depressed a little bit. I'm pretty sure I know what happens. Do not tell me or elaborate any, but I watched 2 people's videos this week. 2, and they're popular people that I enjoy watching, and they both spoiled it for me, which is okay because I'm a little behind, so it's probably you know, not, you know, as big of a deal for them to talk about it since the book's been out for like 2 years now. But I was upset because I found out and I was like, are you kidding? Like, the week that I'm reading Divergent, like, why couldn't I have waited 2 more weeks to watch these videos? But I don't know what to do about that because I'm kind of like, what's the point of continuing on with reading? But I want to see what happens, and I'm going to be really sad, I'm sure. So I feel like that's all I have to say. I feel like there was something I wanted to mention and I cannot think of it. And I feel like I don't know what the point of this is because you guys have already read it. But I wanted to do a book talk because I wanted to share my thoughts. And I know that a lot of times with hyped up books, I have personally experienced not enjoying them as much as everybody else and kind of being let down a little bit. But this was not the case. I think this is definitely worth the hype, definitely something worth checking out, and I'm excited for the movie. So let me know if you guys are gonna go watch it, and if you would like to see me do a reaction video kind of review of the movie like I did with Vampire Academy, because it's kind of fresh in my mind and maybe I can make some associations and stuff like that. So I'm excited. That is all for today. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will talk to you all very soon. Bye.